The suit felt like a costume. I'm Matthew, 48 years old, and I was standing alone at my wife's museum gala. Nicole was across the room, schmutzing donors, leaving me by the abstract sculptures. I was talking to another bored husband about the grain in a rare piece of burlwood, you know. Actual craft. That's when her protege, Ryan, overheard me. He's maybe 29. All teeth and expensive hair gel. He smirked, pulled a $5 bill from his wallet, and held it out to me. Go buy yourself some plywood. Champ, he said, his voice loud enough to carry. I'll handle the fine art tonight. I looked at him. I looked at the $5. Then I looked at Nicole. She saw it. She saw the whole, humiliating exchange, and she just looked away. I need you to understand. Our marriage wasn't always that. That cold, public humiliation. Before she was a director of development, and before I was just the guy in the suit who paid for the champagne, we were a team. My name is Matthew Holt, and I own Holt Custom Cabinetry, and I don't mean I sit in an office managing spreadsheets. I mean I own it. My hands, right now, they've got the stain of black walnut under the nails, a kind of permanent shadow that soap won't touch. My workshop smells like cedar and lacquer and sawdust. It smells real. There's an honor in this work. You take a raw piece of maple, something that grew for 80 years, and you give it a second life. You can't lie to wood. You can't fake a dovetail joint. It's either right or it's wrong. It's either strong or it fails. I build things that last. I build the kitchen islands where families do homework and argue over dinner. The bookcases that hold a lifetime of stories. The foundations for a home. The things I make are tangible. You can touch them. They have weight. They serve a purpose. This isn't just a job, it's a code. You build it right. You build it true. You create something permanent. Nicole. She works in a world I don't understand anymore. A world of brand synergy and curating the narrative. A world where a white canvas with a single red dot is considered genius and costs more than a family's home. A world that runs on expensive carpet and broken dreams. I funded that world. When the museum needed a new wing, my company's donation, my company. The one built on sawdust and sweat got her a seat at the table. It got her the director title. I paid off this house, the one she loved to host parties in. I supported her climb. Every single step. I thought we were a team. I was the substance, she was the style. I was the foundation, she was the art. And for years, I was fine with that. I was proud of her. But somewhere along the way, maybe 5, 6 years ago, she got lost. She was seduced by the white-collar mirage. She started to believe that the trappings of success were the same as success itself. The gallery parties, the important-sounding titles, the fine art that became her reality. She confused what was valuable with what was merely expensive. And my world, my craft, my company, the very engine that paid for all of it. It became an embarrassment. It was too blue-collar, too real. She'd bring her new, art world friends to the house. And I'd see her wince when I'd try to talk about a project. She'd introduce me as, "This is Matthew. He's in construction." She stopped inviting me to her events. Said I didn't fit the culture. I became the inconvenient plywood husband who kept the fine art world running. That $5 bill, that wasn't an insult from a stranger. That was the punchline to a joke my own wife had been telling for years. And in that moment, standing by the sculpture, when she saw him do it, and she looked away. She wasn't just letting him humiliate me. She was agreeing with him. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't say a word. I just looked at the $5 bill in his hand. Then at my wife. Then back at him. My heart wasn't pounding. My hands weren't shaking. It was quiet. Anger wasn't loud this time. It was clinical. It was a single, cold point of light in a dark room. I turned, and I walked out of the gala. I didn't look back to see if she was following me. I already knew she wasn't. The drive home was 35 minutes of absolute silence. The radio was off. The only sound was the tires on the pavement. I wasn't replaying the scene in my head. I wasn't thinking about her laugh or the smug look on his face. I was just clear. I was a man who had been living in a fog for 10 years, and someone had just turned on a high-powered fan. The fog was gone, and I could see the cliff I was about to drive over. I got home. The house was empty. It was my house. I built the damn thing. I designed the kitchen cabinets she loved to show off, fitted the bookshelves in the study, installed the crown molding in the entryway, and it was empty. I went to my workshop. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat on my workbench, the one I'd had for 20 years, and I breathed in the smell of cedar and motor oil. This place made sense. The wood, the tools, the laws of physics, they didn't lie. I waited. At 3:14 a.m., I heard a car door. Not her car. It was one of those black car services the museum used. I watched from the workshop window, hidden in the dark. She got out, stumbling just a little. She was wearing his blazer, a navy blue, double-breasted thing with some tacky gold buttons. Probably cost $2,000. It was huge on her. It looked ridiculous. She crept into the house through the side door. Like a teenager. She didn't come looking for me. She didn't check the workshop. She just went to the guest room. I heard the click of the door down the hall. I waited another 10 minutes. Then I walked across the yard, into the house I built. I didn't go to the guest room. I didn't go to our bedroom. I went to the kitchen, where she'd left her purse. Her phone was on the counter. I didn't need to look at it. I went back outside, got in my truck, and drove to a 24-hour convenience store. I bought a cup of coffee that tasted like burnt plastic and a legal pad. I sat in my truck under the fluorescent lights of the parking lot, and I started making a list, not an emotional list, a balance sheet. Assets, debts, liabilities. I realized I hadn't been a husband in years. I'd been an investor, a silent partner in her life. I'd been funding Brand Nicole, and my dividend payment was a $5 bill for plywood. I drove home as the sun was starting to make the sky that sick. Gray color. She was still asleep. I went to my office, opened my laptop, and ordered 4, top of the line, high-security deadbolts, grade 1, the kind you can't pick. Bump, or drill. I paid for expedited, same-day delivery. Then, I sat in my workshop and I waited. I didn't weld. I didn't sand. I just drank my coffee, cleaned my tools, and planned. This wasn't a marriage ending. This was a hostile takeover, and I was taking it back. She left around 10 a.m. for her hot yoga class, still wearing last night's makeup and some sunglasses. She didn't say a word to me. I guess she was hoping I'd just forget that I'd be the same. Kiat, plywood husband. The locks arrived at 2 p.m. I installed them myself. The satisfaction of the drill biting into the wood, of setting the new strike plate, of the snick of that heavy 1-inch bolt sliding into place. It was the best I'd felt in a decade. I did the front door, the back door, the side door, the door from the garage. By 5 p.m., my house was a fortress. She came home at 6:15. I was sitting in the living room, reading a book on Japanese joinery. I heard her car pull in. I heard her footsteps on the porch. I heard the jingle of her keys. Then I heard the sound of metal hitting hardened steel. A scrape. A jiggle. Then a harder jiggle. Then silence. Then pounding. Matthew, Matthew. The key's stuck. The lock is broken. I put my bookmark in. I walked to the door. I didn't open it. I just looked through the peephole. I could see her face, twisted in annoyance. Matthew opened the door. I opened it. Just the door. Not the storm door. She was standing there, flushed from yoga, looking angry. The lock is jammed. Call a locksmith. The lock isn't broken. Nicole, I said. My voice was calm. It didn't even sound like mine. It sounded final. What are you talking about? Let me in. It's cold. I changed them. Her face went from annoyed to confused. You. What? Why? You can't just change the locks. I can. I did. This is my house. That's when the confusion turned to rage. The real Nicole finally showed up. Your house? Are you kidding me? This is my house too. What is wrong with you? Is this about last night? You're overreacting? Overreacting. I repeated. It wasn't a question. No. I don't think I am. I think, for the first time in 20 years, I'm reacting exactly the right amount. You are being insane. You're trying to control me. That's it. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. I said, call them. Tell them your husband locked you out. And when they get here, I'll show them the hotel charges and the bank transfers, and I'm sure you'd be happy to show them the hickey on your neck. The one his blazer didn't quite cover this morning. Her hand flew to her neck. Her face. It wasn't just pale. It was white, the color of ash. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She finally understood. The rules had changed. Our neighbors were starting to look. Old Mrs. Henderson was pretending to get her mail. You can't do this. Matthew, she whispered. The rage gone, replaced by a cold, sulculating panic. I just did. I said, you should go. I'm sure Ryan has a spare room. Or, a hotel. I closed the door. I didn't slam it. I just closed it. I turned the deadbolt, and the heavy thud of the bolt sliding into the frame was the most satisfying sound I'd ever heard. I went back to my chair and picked up my book. I was home. Her retaliation was immediate. I guess she found a lawyer who worked Sundays. By Tuesday morning, a courier delivered a thick envelope to my workshop. It wasn't a please let's talk letter. It was a formal petition. She was demanding spousal support. She was demanding the house be sold and the assets divided. And then, the punchline. She was demanding 50% of my business. 50%. Of Holt Custom Cabinetry. The business she called Plywood. The company whose name she wouldn't even say at her fancy parties. The workshop she hadn't set foot in for, I'm guessing, 3 years. The sheer, breathtaking audacity of it. I actually laughed. It was a dry, sharp sound in the sawdust-filled air. She'd finally put a number on her disrespect. 50%. I didn't get mad. I got organized. This wasn't a divorce. This was a hostel. I picked up the phone and called Anthony. Anthony isn't the kind of lawyer you see on billboards. He's the kind of lawyer you keep on retainer. He handles contract, incorporation, liability. He's all business. Sharp as a tack. And he hates lazy antagonists. I sat in his office. The thick legal petition on his mahogany desk between us. He read it, his face betraying nothing. He got to the part about my business and one eyebrow went up. Just one. 50%. He said, that's ambitious. After she publicly aligned with a competitor, he's not a competitor. Anthony. He's some kid at the museum. Anthony leaned back, steepling his fingers. Matthew, in a legal fight. Perception is reality. She wants to claim half the business. Fine. Then we need to know exactly what that business is worth. And, more importantly, we need to know what she's been doing with its assets. He picked up his phone. I'm sending you to Rachel. She's a forensic accountant. The best. She's meticulous. Give her access to everything. Joint accounts. Business accounts. Credit cards. Everything. Nicole wants to open the books. Let's open all of them. He smiled. But it wasn't a nice smile. Let's see what the fine art world has been really costing you. Rachel's office wasn't like Anthony's. It was a small, sterile room in a high-rise, filled with monitors and filing cabinets. She was in her 30s, wore sharp glasses, and didn't waste time on small talk. She just pointed to a chair and said, logins. All of them. I spent an hour giving her access to the last 10 years of my life. My business accounts, my personal accounts, the joint credit cards, go back as far as you need. I said. She just nodded, her fingers already flying across a keyboard. I always do. I'll call you when I find something. She called me 2 days later. You need to come in. Now. I walked into her office. The atmosphere was different. It wasn't just business. It was heavy. She had spreadsheets open on 3 different screens. Matthew, she said, not looking up. This isn't just an affair. This is grand larceny. She pointed to a screen. This is your joint account. The one you use for household expenses. Look at these transfers. 10,000 here. 5,000 here. Another 10. All moving to the same place. A single account. $110,000 over the last 18 months. My blood went cold. $110,000? Where? Where did it go? She clicked a mouse. A new window popped up. An LLC. Registered in Oregon. R.C. Designs. Mean anything to you? R.C. I whispered. I could feel the blood draining from my face. Ryan. His name. I think it's Ryan. I couldn't even finish the sentence. That's what I assumed. Rachel said. Her voice clipped. But it gets worse. She showed me another screen. He registered R.C. Designs 6 months ago. Business purpose, art curation and consulting. It's a shell. No assets. No other income. Just your money. This was the secondary twist. This was the part that made my stomach turn. She wasn't just funding an affair. This wasn't just paying for hotels and expensive dinners. This was an investment. She was investing in him. I said out loud. The words tasted like ash. She was bankrolling his new gallery. Using my money to buy him. To buy a new life? She was buying something. Rachel agreed. But Matthew, I'm not done. I looked at her. What else? When Anthony called, he said to be meticulous. So I was. I took the name Ryan Cross, and I cross-referenced it. Just to be thorough. I ran it against your personal payroll, your business payroll, and your subsidiary accounts. My subsidiaries, Matthew. Who, exactly, is Artisan Home Fittings. My stomach dropped. It felt like I'd fallen from a building. It's my subsidiary. It's my high-end hardware line. Knobs. Handles. Hinges. It's part of my company. A separate division. Why? Rachel just turned her laptop around. And there it was. On my own company's payroll. Employee list for Artisan Home Fittings. Ryan Cross. Marketing manager. Hired 2 years ago. Salary, $130,000 a year. I just stared. I couldn't breathe. The numbers didn't make sense. The guy at the party, the smug, arrogant kid, the one who'd thrown a $5 bill at me, he wasn't just sleeping with my wife. He wasn't just stealing my money to fund his new life. He was cashing my paycheck. He was using my money. To steal my money. To sleep with my wife. While working for my company, I started to laugh. It was the same dry, sharp laugh from the workshop. But this time, it was louder. It was the laugh of a man who had finally, seen the entire, sick, absurd blueprint. Rachel looked at me. Concerned. Matthew, I'm fine. Rachel, I said, wiping a tear from my eye. The laugh died, replaced by that same, cold, clinical clarity. I'm better than fine. This isn't a divorce anymore. This isn't even just theft. I stood up, my mind already working. Planning. Seeing the next 10 steps. This, I said, is pest control. Tuesday. 10 I walked into the offices of Artisan Home Fittings. This place was always weird to me. It was my company, but it felt like Nicole had decorated it. Minimalist white desks, brushed steel accents, expensive carpet that smelled like chemicals, It was the opposite of my workshop. It was all style, no substance. I'd had my assistant schedule a mandatory synergy meeting for the executive team. People were already filing into the conference room, looking nervous. A surprise meeting with the owner always makes people sweat. Sarah, our HR director, was there, as I'd requested. The head of sales, the operations manager, they all nodded at me. Looking confused, I just smiled, took the seat at the head of the table, and opened my notebook. At 10:02, Ryan walked in. He was the picture of confidence. Expensive suit, Lotte in hand, a leather portfolio tucked under his arm. He was probably vibrating with excitement, thinking this meeting was about his RC design project, his brilliant new synergy idea. He thought he was the future of the company. He saw me at the head of the table, and he froze. The color just fell out of his face. The confident smirk, the easy posture. It all collapsed. He looked like a puppet whose strings had just been cut. Ryan, I said, my voice calm, friendly. Glad you could make it. Have a seat. He sat down, his movements jerky. He put his latte on the table, and I could see his hand shaking. Morning, everyone. I started, looking around at the team. Thanks for coming on short notice. I called this meeting to discuss a serious matter of professional conduct, resource management, and creative accounting. Ryan was staring at his notebook like it held the secrets to the universe. He wouldn't look at me. We've had an employee, I continued, who has shown a remarkable level of initiative, an employee who decided to synergize corporate funds with his personal projects, an employee who felt so comfortable here, he decided to collaborate with the owner's wife on multiple levels. Sarah, the HR director, was looking at her own notes, her face grim. She knew. The head of sales was looking back and forth between me and Ryan, the gears turning. Ryan started to speak. Mr. Holt, I'm not sure what you're not, I asked, cutting him off, but keeping my voice gentle. Let me help you. I reached into my jacket pocket. I pulled out the folded, crumpled $5 bill. I unfolded it, smoothing it out on the polished table. Then, I slid it across the wood. It glided over the surface and stopped right in front of his portfolio. I'm returning this, I said. The room was dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the expensive carpet. Ryan stared at the $5 bill like it was a cobra. I don't. It's yours, I said. You gave it to me at the museum gala. For plywood. I can't accept it, but I would like to consider it a down payment on the $110,000 you and Nicole stole from my family. His face went from white to a sick, blotchy red. He half stood, knocking over his latte. Coffee flooded the table. That's not. You're fired, Ryan, I said, my voice cutting through his stammering. It wasn't loud. It was just final, effective immediately. For cause. We have documented proof of embezzlement, Via Fraud, and a flagrant conflict of interest. Your corporate accounts are frozen, and your access is revoked. Security is waiting for you at your desk. He finally looked at me, his eyes wide with pure, animal panits. Please, he whispered. Matthew. Mr. Holt. Please. She made me. It was her idea, she said. She said you didn't care about the money. I stood up. I looked at Sarah, our HR director. Sarah, please handle the exit interview and have security escort Mr. Cross from the premises. I didn't look at him again. I just walked out of the conference room, leaving him sitting there, coffee soaking into his expensive suit, staring at a $5 bill that had just cost him everything. The courtroom was exactly what you'd expect. Beige walls, fluorescent light, Bad coffee? It wasn't a grand hall of justice. It was a municipal room for processing human failures. Nicole was there, sitting next to a lawyer who looked like he'd stepped out of a catalog for aggressive divorce attorneys. She was wearing a conservative gray dress, her makeup perfectly applied to look tired. But brave. The victim, she wouldn't look at me. Her lawyer went first. He painted a masterpiece of fiction. I was controlling. I was emotionally withholding. I was financially abusive. He claimed I had a history of erratic behavior, and that my changing the locks was the act of a vindictive, unstable man. He argued that Nicole, as the social and emotional architect of our marriage, had sacrificed her own earning potential to support my niche, blue-collar business, and was therefore entitled to half of all assets. I just sat there. Anthony, Milavier, didn't object. He just let him talk. He let him build his entire fragile case. When it was Anthony's turn, he stood up slowly. He didn't make a speech. He didn't raise his voice. He just looked at the judge, a woman in her 60s with eyes that had seen everything. Your Honor, Anthony said, his voice quiet. We'd like to submit Exhibit A, a full forensic audit of the last 24 months of the defendant's and plaintiff's financial activity, prepared by a certified third party. He placed Rachel's report, a 3-inch thick binder, on the judge's bench. The judge opened it. She put on her glasses. The courtroom was silent for a full 5 minutes. As she turned the pages, I watched her expression. It went from bored to interested to deeply, profoundly annoyed. She looked up, not at the lawyers, but right at Nicole. Mrs. Holt, the judge said, her voice sharp. Can you explain R.C. designs? Nicole's lawyer jumped up. Objection. Your Honor, that pertains to... It pertains to this, the judge said, tapping the binder. Your client is asking for 50% of her husband's business. I am looking at a report that shows $110,000 in marital funds being transferred, without the co-signer's knowledge, to a private LLC, an LLC, I see here, that has no other income. Nicole went gray. She started to stammer. It was a business consultant. For my work. The judge just turned another page. A consultant named Ryan Cross, the same Ryan Cross who, according to Exhibit B, is an employee of Mr. Holt's subsidiary company. Nicole's lawyer just sat down. He knew it was over. The judge took off her glasses. This court does not reward fraud. Mrs. Holt, this is not a case of marital disagreement. This is a case of calculated, systematic embezzlement. The ruling was a verbal dismantling. It was swift. It was cold. It was, in its own way, perfect. First, the $110,000. She was ordered to repay the full amount. Second, the business. Her claim for 50% was dismissed, with prejudice. The judge cited acts of profound bad faith and financial malfeasance. I was awarded 100% of Holt Custom Cabinetry and all its subsidiaries, free and clear. Third, the house, as the primary asset of the business I had built and she had actively stolen from. I was awarded the house. No buyout. Finally, the judge looked at the asset list. Mrs. Holt will retain her personal belongings, her jewelry, and, she paused, squinting at the paper, her 10-year-old Nissan. The gavel hit. It wasn't a sound of victory. It was the sound of a ledger being closed. The accounting was, finally, done. 6 months later, it's spring. The air in my workshop is thick with the smell of cedar and fresh-cut walnut. The business. It's thriving. The story got out. The plywood comment. The $5 bill. It became a strange legend in the contracting community. I guess a lot of people are tired of being looked down on by the fine art world. My order backlog is 9 months long. The kids. They're healing. My oldest. Elijah. He's 19 now. He's taking a gap year before starting trade school. He's working with me in the shop. He's quiet. Like me. He saw the whole truth. Saw the numbers. He didn't have to pick a side. The facts picked one for him. The other day, he was holding a chisel, watching me work. She chose fine art. Dad, he said, we choose what's real. The twins, Jacob and Chloe. They're 16. They're angry at her. But it's the righteous anger of teenagers who see hypocrisy. They'll be okay. My baby, Grace. 13. That was the hardest. She's in therapy. She came into the workshop last week, climbing up on the workbench, which she knows she's not supposed to do. She sat there, kicking her feet. Doctor, Miller says you had to protect the foundation. Daddy. I stopped sanding. I looked at her. Yeah. Sweetie, I did. She said a house with a bad foundation just cracks and falls down, no matter how pretty the paint is. I just nodded. She's a smart lady. She's right, Grace said. It's better to be a strong house. Last month, I was sketching late one night. I had an idea. Not just a new cabinet. A new line. The best work I've ever done. Solid American hardwood. No veneers. No shortcuts. Joints so tight you can't slip a piece of paper between them. It's heavy. It's permanent. I'm calling it the foundation line. Tonight, I'm finishing the first piece. A sideboard. Solid black walnut. The grain like a flowing river. Elijah is here. Buffing the final coat of oil. Making the wood glow. I pick up the new laser engraver I bought. I open a small file on the computer. Inside the top drawer, in the back left corner, where only the owner will ever see it, I engrave a small logo. A simple carpenter's plumb bob. The symbol of truth. Of what's level. Of what's real. And underneath it, 2 words. Built on truth. I close the drawer. The smoke from the laser clears. The work is real. The house is quiet. And for the first time in 20 years, so am I. Oh. And that $5 bill, it's framed. It's hanging on the wall of my office. Right next to my very first building permit. A reminder. A reminder that fine art is just a story someone tells you. But plywood is what holds the roof up. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.